Shri Swaminathan J, and two executive directors, Dr. O.P. Mal and Dr. Rajiv Ranjan. So as is customary, I would request Governor to make some opening remarks and then we'll go for the Q&A.
Good morning. Namaskar. I guess I will not be off the mark if I say that the policy overall is on expected lines. So it demonstrates that I think the Reserve Bank, the market participants, the market players, and perhaps the media and analysts and all, every stakeholder, I think the thinking is at the moment well aligned so far as the monetary policy is concerned. But having said that, I just want to make 5 observations. First, inflation is moderating and the GDP growth is robust. Number 2, the Monetary Policy Committee remains focused on aligning inflation to the target on a durable basis. We derive satisfaction from the progress made under disinflation, but the task is not yet finished. Number 3, the financial sector continues to be stable. Number 4, external sector also continues to be resilient. Number 5, as we move towards RBI at 100, the Reserve Bank will continue to focus on preserving financial stability and promoting a financial sector and a payment system that is robust, resilient, and future ready. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those opening remarks. I will, before inviting all of you, I'll request you to please restrict to one question per person. And if time permits, we will go for another one. I'll call out the names. I'll start with Mr. Ankur Mishra from ET Now.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you, Yogesh, sir. My question is that you have mentioned that the elephant has reached, you want elephant to stay in forest in a durable basis. Is it still outside the room or it has already reached forest? Why I'm asking, because in your projections, you have said that in Q3 and Q4, there is going to be slight uptick in inflation. So what is your assessment?
You see, the elephant moves at a slow pace. So therefore, the last mile of disinflation is always challenging and sticky. And as I have very clearly stated, we would like, inflation to align with the target on a durable basis. So that is the, that is what we are looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Mayur Shetty from the Times of India.
Governor, in your speech, you specifically mentioned the need to build up foreign exchange reserves. So this is something that RBI has been doing and the rupee has been stable. So is it that the currency stability has moved up in the list of priorities for RBI?
No, it has always been the priority of the Reserve Bank to ensure stability of the Indian rupee. And I have myself stated about it on a number of occasions. My colleagues have also talked about it on a number of occasions. So far as building up of reserves is concerned, I think consciously we have, over the last 4-5 years, we have been building up reserves whenever, as the market moves, depending on the prevailing market situation. So, and that endeavor continues because it acts as a buffer against future risks, especially in situation when the cycle turns and if there are significant outward flows of dollars. So I have said it earlier also. So it is by way of a buffer that we are building up reserves. It adds, and this is very important, this whole approach adds to the strength of the national balance sheet.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Anup Roy from Bloomberg.
Thank you, sir. Sir, just trying to understand a little bit about your thinking on the heat wave warnings. You have not changed your inflation forecast that much, but will you be watching out for the heat wave warnings first, and what is the impact that's going to be before taking a call, or you have seen and decided that it is not that materially important?
No, there is a statement coming out from the IMD that the temperatures, I have not said heat wave, I have said the, high temperatures. The IMD has stated that there will be high temperatures, and perhaps they have used a different word. They have not used the word heat wave, but the temperatures are going to be above normal in the months of April, May, and June. So we have to really watch what impact it has on, especially on food crops, and in that I have mentioned specifically about certain key vegetables. Now, so far as wheat crop is concerned, our information is that by and large the harvesting is over. In central part of India, it's fully over, excepting maybe a few areas, and even in other places also. By and large, the wheat harvest is over. So therefore, the wheat crop, the wheat, availability will not be affected as much as it did, some 2 years ago when there were heat wave conditions starting March. So therefore, wheat, there is not so much worry, but there's not so much concern. But vegetable prices have to be watched, and any other impact that heat wave conditions that may produce.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Ritu Singh from CNBC TV18.
Governor, just a comment on, thank you for the question. On the exchange traded currency derivative rules, it's very clear that RBI stance has not changed. Yet the market, of course, has grown to almost $5 billion of notional turnover on a daily basis. Now that this deadline has been extended, but still the fact remains that you're asking for the underlying to be there when these trades are undertaken. We just wanted to understand, was there a concern that RBI had about, risks, whether it comes to the financial stability or the currency, because of which this deadline was put in the first place for a rule that has stayed in place for now 10 years?
Okay, I guess there could be some more questions on this issue. If there are any, you could just mention so that we take it all together and give a common reply. I mean, she has already mentioned certain points other than that, but related to this matter.
Exactly.
If you have any question, you can just put it so that we take it all together.
Exactly. The question is that yesterday you extended the deadline after 5:30, after the trading hours. The market has died by that time, but you still have extended the deadline. What is the reason for extending the deadline by 1 month? Is there a scope to review your decision? That is the question.
Okay. Yeah.
So the
But
volumes
please
are...
remember that you are
Yeah.
exhausting your opportunity to ask a
Sir,
question.
no, you said you're taking all these together.
So please keep that in mind.
So no, just wanted to understand.
Unless
if
you're asking something fundamentally different.
No,
I
are
wouldn't-
you okay with the volumes completely dying down in this market? And globally, the underlying is not a requirement in most markets. So why is that rule being made, especially for India? And why have we had that position for the last so many years?
Okay, I think I take it that these are the questions. So may I request DG Michael Patra to reply to that question, and I will, if necessary, I will supplement.
Thank you, Governor.
Just speak to the mic.
Yeah. So let me just quickly review the whole thing so that everything is in perspective. Please also read our press release of yesterday. We typically issue after market hours, so it is in keeping with RBI's style. The RBI's policy on foreign exchange risk management has remained consistent over the last few years, and there is no change in the policy approach. That is what I want to emphasize at the outset. So in 2008, when exchange traded currency derivatives were introduced for the first time, they were introduced under the aegis of the Foreign Exchange Management Act, and the regulations of FEMA clearly stated that ETCDs are for hedging only. And when you state that, it implies that you must have an underlying exposure. In 2014, the RBI, to promote the ease of doing business, provided a relaxation in the sense that while you must have underlying exposure, Up to 10 million of that exposure, you need not produce documentary evidence of it. Since then, over the next few years, that limit was raised to 100 million just to provide an incentive for market turnover and to expand the size of the market. But the moot point is that it is only for hedging and underlying exposure is a mandatory requirement. The January 5, 2024 circular was in pursuance of a commitment made in the monetary policy statement of December 2023, in which we said that there are all these stipulations all over the place. We will bring it together into a master direction. And the January 2024 circular was a master direction. It just reiterated what has been there since 2014. So there was no change in that. Now, some market participants have been misusing this to understand that a relaxation in documentary evidence is tantamount to no underlying, which is not the case. And that is a violation of the law. I don't know if Governor wants to add.
No, just I want to supplement by summarizing what the Deputy Governor said, is that there is no change pursuant to yesterday's circular or even earlier. There has been no change in RBI's policy. This policy of this need to have an underlying has always been a part of RBI's policy for last so many years. So there was no change. And this is something which every market player knew. You cannot say that this is something new. If you read the circulars, past circulars very carefully, it has been always there. So therefore, if somebody says it is new, it is not correct. I would like them to refer to the circulars. And in fact, that is the purpose for which we issued the circular yesterday, just to, because there was some kind of a narrative was building up in certain quarters, we wanted to make it very clear that there is nothing new. This has been the requirement all along. Market players knew about it. It is a part of FEMA regulation, the need for an underlying. And all that we have done is to sort of issue this circular. And there was also a question, or maybe there is a possible question, what was the need for extension? Let me preempt that and say that we received feedback and requests from several market participants that they need more time. The earlier circular was issued the master direction was issued in January. And let me also say why the master direction was issued. In the December monetary policy, statement, the regulatory and the developmental part of the monetary policy statement, we had very clearly said that a comprehensive master direction would be issued, and the master direction was issued in January, first week of January, and it was said there very clearly it takes effect from 5th of April. So everything was crystal clear. But because of requests which we have received, and because of the kind of narrative which was being built up as if it's something new, what we did is to just reiterate the earlier position and say that it is nothing new. It has been always there. And number two, because of requests which we received from several market players that they need more time, we extended the time for the implementation of that January circular. So instead of April 5th, we have now made it 3rd of May.
So you're ruling out any review of the position, right?
No, this has been a consistent position. It's a legal requirement as per FEMA regulations. So where is the question of a review of that? It's been there for last so many years.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Laltendu Mishra from the Hindu.
Good afternoon, Governor. What is fueling the food prices inflation, and whether this is new normal? And second question is, in an election year, what are the factors the RBI is watching out for?
We have given our projections for inflation and growth for 24-25 up to the fourth quarter of the year. Inflation, we have said it will be 4.5% for the whole year. Growth, we have said it will be 7% for the whole year. And when 7% growth happens for the current year, it will be the fourth successive year of 7% or higher growth. Beyond that, on elections, I would not naturally like to say anything. And with regard to food inflation, I think let Dr. Michael Patra reply to that.
So food inflation has been highly volatile. In fact, in February, it was 7.8%. And the indications are that in view of adverse climate events recurring, it will remain high. The actors keep shifting. At some stage, it was cereals, then went to vegetables. And currently, it is the proteins, eggs, meat, and fish, while there is still some firmness in rice prices. So these are short duration spikes, but since they occur in multiple occasions, they give a persistent character. So what we are worried about is that there should not be any spillovers to the rest of CPI. So we watch very closely.
And before we go to the next question, I mentioned about this above normal temperature. I have the IMD release with me. It says that during 2024 hot weather season, it talks about hot weather season, April to June, above normal maximum temperatures are likely over most parts of the country. So it talks about hot weather season. It talks about above normal maximum temperatures. Yeah. Next question.
Yeah. Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Govardhan Rangan from Economic Times.
Thank you, sir. So thanks for the no surprises policy to start with. And so one of the things that's happening is that the real rates, what they say, it's at almost double that of what an RBI paper itself had suggested in 21-22, almost 200 basis points. So, so one of the MPC members in the last minutes had also indicated that probably we may be sacrificing growth if you're not reducing the interest rates. Is it this high rates almost double of what the real interest rate is suggested by the RBI research itself? Is it kind of a sacrificing growth at this point of time? Thank you.
I think DG can reply to that.
No, you should assess the level of the real rate in terms of the distance at which inflation is from the target. Even going 12 months forward, inflation is not at target. So that is our primary objective, that we must align inflation with the target. Until then, the real rates are not so high as you say.
Real rates do not matter till it reaches 4%. Is that what?
No, they matter, but we need to see the alignment of inflation with the target. That is the primary objective of monetary policy.
You see, under the law, the primary objective, as he has rightly pointed out, is price stability, inflation targeting. It is an inflation targeting framework. And talking about the real rate, that study, the earlier study by the RBI was done about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. 21-22. So that is about, about 3 years ago it was done. Much has happened since then. Our potential growth also appears to have gone up. In fact, when going by the NSO's forecast of 7.6% growth for the year 23-25, the average for the 3 years, that is 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24, the average will work out to 8%. So when your average growth over a 3-year period is 8%, naturally the potential growth appears to have gone up. We will undertake a study after the final GDP numbers for the current for the year 23-24. It is released end of May. After it is released, we will again undertake a study to assess this potential growth and the real rate. And maybe thereafter we can sort of provide you some additional information. So therefore the potential growth and the real rate have to be seen in, the real rate has to be seen in that context. I'm not reaching any conclusion, but I'm just saying that the real rate has to be looked in that from that perspective. But essentially, as rightly pointed out by the Deputy Governor, it is the level of inflation going forward 1 year ahead, where the inflation is likely to be. That is what really guides us in our journey of attaining price stability.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Dinesh Unnikrishnan from Money Control.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Governor. I just wanted to know what is your view on the electoral bonds data that is published by the Election Commission of India following the Supreme Court directive. So, if you look at it, there are many cases where companies have bought electoral bonds many times more than their net worth and profit. And also, there are quite a few cases where companies which are even in losses, they have bought quite a few, about 600 crores worth electoral bonds. That is the that. Have you looked at this data? Is there a possibility that RBI, looking at that, these companies probably would have been used by others as a channel for funding?
No, on electoral bonds, we have no comments. It's a Supreme Court judgment which has to be complied with, and which has been, in pursuance of the Supreme Court judgment. I think the bank involved, the State Bank, has taken the required action. So we have no comments on the Supreme Court judgment or on the issue of electoral bonds. And with regard to the issues you are pointing it out, that the net worth vis-a-vis how much they have contributed, these are issues which are not in the domain of the Reserve Bank.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Vishwanath Nair from NDTV Profit.
Thank you, sir. Governor, you spoke about the real rates in detail, but the bottom line is you're not seeing 4% in FY25, at least according to your projections at this point in time. There was hope that when the US Federal Reserve supposedly is going to cut rates in June, then the RBI might follow. Are we looking at any kind of any indication of a rate cut this financial year or not? That's my primary question.
You see, with regard to the rate cut this year, I cannot give you a forward guidance. In fact, countries which give dot plots also, the dot plots keep changing from meeting to meeting. So with regard to rate cut or whatever rate action, I mean, let me not say rate cut, but whatever rate action, it is linked to the evolving path of inflation. So on that, I cannot give you any forward guidance. And the other point which you mentioned about expectation linked to US rate cut, I think, as I have said on number of occasions earlier, our monetary policy is primarily guided and determined by our domestic situations. So we do not just follow the footsteps of the US Fed. In fact, if you just recall in the past several months or past few years in particular, I can talk about. I mean, we did our rate cuts. Our rate cut, which we did in 2019, or the beginning of the rate increase, which we did in 2022, they actually preceded US Fed action. So therefore, our policy is governed and determined primarily by domestic circumstances.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Anand Adhikari from Business Today. Let's.
I think I said very clearly that we would like the elephant to return to the forest and stay there on a durable basis. And I reiterated by saying that we would like inflation to align with the target on a durable basis. So I think that needs no further elaboration. That's for you to judge.
I'll move on to Mr. Shayan Ghosh from the Mint. So that's it.
Good afternoon, Governor. I wanted to ask, so the Prime Minister on a Monday spoke of RBI's priority of growth. He, of course, then went on to add trust and stability. Does the government now want RBI to prioritize growth over inflation? Is that the reading?
I think you have answered the question. The Prime Minister talked about growth. The Prime Minister also talked about stability and trust. So therefore, my understanding is that what the Prime Minister said is in line with what is provided in the RBI Act with regard to inflation targeting.
Sorry, if I may add, so he led with growth. So I thought
Sorry.
he led with growth and then
No.
went on to add. So I thought.
Well, I mean, you can make any nuance, ask a nuanced question. Yeah, and he also talked use the word balance. If you recall, he also talked about balance. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Swati Bhatt Chete from Reuters.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. So I had a very small question. Do you think the moderate falling core inflation is indicative of weak consumer demand? Is that something that is a concern at your end? And you've already answered the question on forex reserves earlier. Just a side note. So there is a cost to building reserves. Are you considering that cost as well? And how are you looking at that? And are you looking to continue building gold reserves? Thank you.
We are building up gold reserves. The data, is released from time to time. We are building gold reserves. You can compare, year after year, what is the gold reserve that the Reserve Bank is holding. So that's a part of our, reserve deployment. And what was the other question? Sorry?
If you continue raising reserves, the cost of holding these reserves on the other.
No, all aspects are obviously, all aspects are assessed. All aspects while building up the reserves are assessed, and then we take a decision.
Thank you, sir.
No, demand, you said consumption. You say weaker consumption. I think in the monetary policy, I have said you have asked 3-4 questions, including the, the derivative, this thing, the exchange. Now the point is, what was that you said? So because you're asking so many questions, I'm getting mixed up. No, I think in the policy statement, I have said very clearly that urban consumption remains strong and rural consumption has recovered and is gaining. So it's there in the policy statement.
I'll move on to Mr. Manojit Saha from the Business Standard. That's it.
Thank you.
He asked a question.
No, that was on currency derivatives.
Happy to skip.
Yeah.
The growth projection for FY25, you have kept it at 7%. And at the same time, you have earlier said FY24 could be closer to 8%. What will slow down growth in the current financial year? As you also said, the average growth was closer to 8% in the last 3 years, but this year you're projecting 7%. So what will slow down growth in the current financial year from the 8%?
The MPR has been released today. I think MPR has been released or will be released today. The monetary policy report should be getting uploaded now. It is already uploaded. Yeah. So the MPR is already uploaded. So you can have a look at it. So maybe Dr. Michael Patra can further amplify.
The 8% will provide a base effect onto 24-25. But the momentum is very strong. It's still as strong as it is in 23-24. Because it's a year-on-year growth rate. Not an
effect, essentially, you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to this side. I'll invite Mr. Ashish Agishe from PTI.
Thank you so much, sir. So you, in the end of your speech, you mentioned about the goal being in sight on inflation. You also gave us the target for FY25, your expectations for FY25. So if 4% is the goal, like what sort of path do you see on inflation going ahead?
I think we have given. Yeah, but we have given the quarterly projections also, no? For the next year, we have given the quarterly projections. I think Q2 it comes to 3.8%, but thereafter again it goes up, and there are so many uncertainties between now and each of these quarters. So we will be watchful and watchful of the current prevailing inflation, as well as watchful of what the outlook appears. How the outlook appears. So based on that, we will take a decision.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Piyush Shukla from the Financial Express.
Good afternoon, Governor, DGs, and Yogesh ji. So very quickly, just you have allowed SFBs to deal in rupee interest rate derivative products today. There is also an ask that they want to shed their small finance tag because people feel a bit hesitant towards banking with such names. Apart from that, there are certain regulatory relaxations also being sought on PSL CRAR. So, what is your view in this regard, sir? And separately, SRO draft framework has come out. When can we expect the final framework to come out? Are you on board with them having dual mechanism? You had said in your circular that there needs to be a consensus on the membership criteria and dual SROs.
No, thank you for moving to the part B of the MPC resolution, because there are 7 other announcements which have been made, each of them very important. And on the first part about the SFB thing, I will request Deputy Governor Rajeshwar Rao to reply. And on the FinTech SRO, I would request Deputy Governor Ravi Shankar to reply.
Thank you, Piyush, for that question. See, SFBs actually have been conceptualized as a differentiated bank with a specific objective. And the tag of having an SFP after the name is a key part of that differentiator. So I don't think there's any requirement to modify that and at this point in time. Also, the objective of the SFP is to further financial inclusion among the underserved and the unserved through using high-tech and low-cost operations. And meeting the priority sector norms, etc., is a key part of this entire process. So I think the norms continue to be at that levels for the priority for the SFBs.
On the SRO, we have received the comments. The last date was, as you know, the end of February.
This is FinTech SRO.
FinTech SROs. We have received the comments. We are examining those comments. We will be out with a framework based on which entities can apply for SROs. The details of that framework, please wait until we announce it. You know, the various issues that we had put out in the draft framework, where whether there would be one or more SROs and what would be the membership criteria and so on, will finalize based on the feedback. Please wait for the final framework to come out. Thank you.
And let me supplement by saying that the framework we expect to release it. We hope, we propose to release it before the end of April. And as mentioned by me in the last global fintech festival, that in the next year's festival, that is in 2024 global fintech festival, we would like one SRO relating to fintech to be operational. So we are working towards that.
थैंक यू सर. अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा आकाशवाणी से श्री जीवन भाव सर.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर. सीबीडीसी का पायलट प्रोसेसिंग प्रोजेक्ट जो हमारा चल रहा है, तो उसकी वर्तमान स्थिति क्या है वो हमें जानने में इंटरेस्ट है. और साथ में यूपीआई के साथ हमने इसको इंटरऑपरेबल किया है, तो जो इनकी जो ट्रांजैक्शंस है, ट्रांजैक्शंस में कितनी बढ़ोतरी हुई है?
इस प्रश्न का उत्तर मैं डिप्टी गवर्नर रविशंकर जी को उत्तर देने के लिए रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा.
इंटरऑपरेबल करने के बाद उसका वॉल्यूम्स इंक्रीज किए हैं. जैसे कि मैं पहले भी बताया हूँ, ऑब्जेक्टिव यही है पायलट्स के कि वेरियस ऑल्टरनेटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज हो, वेरियस ऑल्टरनेटिव यूज केसेस हो, वो ट्राई किया जाए. जैसे कि पिछले साल हम बताए थे, हम लोग ये टेस्ट करना चाहते हैं कि सिस्टम कितना रेजिलिएंट है अगर ट्रांजैक्शन 1 मिलियन को बढ़ाया जाता है. तो वो टारगेट रखे थे एंड ऑफ द ईयर तक. वो टारगेट अचीव भी कर लिए, उसमें टेस्ट किए, और वो टारगेट अचीव करने में इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी विथ यूपीआई काफी काम में आया. उसके बाद वॉल्यूम्स उतना नहीं है, नीचे आए हैं. लेकिन एक चीज देखने को मिली है कि वॉल्यूम्स ज्यादा P2P से P2M को शिफ्ट हो रहे हैं, क्योंकि ज्यादा मर्चेंट्स अवेलेबल हैं. अभी का डेटा का हिसाब से करीब 46 लाख यूजर्स हैं और 4 लाख मर्चेंट्स हैं. सो टोटल अबाउट 50 लाख पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं. टोटल ट्रांजैक्शंस अभी तक करीब 2.2 करोड़ तक हुआ है. पिछले पॉलिसी में हम लोग प्रोग्रामेबिलिटी अनाउंस किए थे. पहला प्रोग्रामेबिलिटी का यूज केस आज शुरू हुआ है, तो उसके बारे में बाद में बताएंगे. ये फार्मर को सीबीडीसी ट्रांसफर करने का यूज केस है, जो कि वो अपना इनपुट्स के लिए ही यूज कर सकते हैं। दूसरा केसेस अभी अभी बन रहे हैं, वो धीरे धीरे ग्रेजुअली वो भी हम लोग इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे। एक और अनाउंस पिछले बार जो किए थे ऑफलाइन यूजर्स जो सीबीडीसी का, वो ऑफलाइन यूजर्स अभी वो क्लोज्ड ग्रुप में विद इन बैंक्स अभी टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, वो डेवलप हो गया है, टेस्ट चालू है। एक बार वो सेटल कर जाता है तो उसको भी ओपन कर देंगे बाहर के लिए। थैंक यू।
धन्यवाद महोदय। अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा ब्रजेश कुमार, जी बिजनेस न्यूज से।
सर मेरा सवाल ये होगा कि हाल के दिनों में आपने 2 एनबीएफसीज पे एक्शन लिया है, एक गोल्ड लोन से जुड़ा था और एक कैपिटल मार्केट की फाइनेंसिंग से। तो जो गोल्ड लोन का इशू है उसमें क्या ये आपको लगता है कि कहीं इंडस्ट्री वाइड प्रैक्टिस में समस्या है और इस पर कोई नई पॉलिसी लाना चाहेंगे? ऐसी ही कोई पॉलिसी की एक्सपेक्टेशन क्या जो कैपिटल मार्केट से जुड़ी एनबीएफसीज हैं उनके लिए भी सोचा जा रहा है क्या?
देखिए, इंडिविजुअल एंटिटी रिलेटेड केसेस के बारे में तो मैं यहाँ पे रिप्लाई हमेशा प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में अवॉइड करते हैं, लेकिन जनरली मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि हमारा जो सुपरविजन मशीनरी है आरबीआई का, वो रेगुलरली हम लोग इसको बैंक्स हो, एनबीएफसीज हो, जितने लेंडर्स हो, उनको रेगुलरली हमारा सुपरविजन करते रहते हैं। और जहाँ पे हमको दिखा कुछ डिविएशन हो रहा है, कुछ कंप्लायंस में और रेगुलेटरी रिक्वायरमेंट्स में मेजर डिविएशंस हो रहा है, पहले हमारा प्रयत्न ये रहता है कि उनके साथ डायरेक्टली उनको बायलैटरली सेंसिटाइज करे और उनके साथ काम करे और उनको इम्प्रेस करे कि भाई आप करेक्टिव एक्शन ले लीजिए। उनके साथ हम काम करते हैं, जब देखते हैं प्रोग्रेस नॉट अप टू द मार्क, फिर हम उसके ऊपर कुछ सुपरवाइजरी रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाते हैं। बट एज अ पार्ट ऑफ सुपरविजन हम पूरा सिस्टम का और सिस्टम में जितने प्लेयर्स है, सब पर्टिकुलरली मेजर प्लेयर्स जितना है, उनका हम रेगुलरली रिव्यू और सुपरविजन करते रहते हैं। तो मैं ये नहीं कहना चाहूंगा कि ये एक सिस्टम वाइड प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि हमने सबको सुपरवाइज किया हुआ है। आउटलायर केसेस में ही सिर्फ हम एक्शन लेते हैं।
Larger message, Governor, from these spate of regulatory actions against these financial entities, and it's not one entity. For instance, Muthoot would say that the cash dispersals for gold loans are also high. IFL also, right after the action from you, said this is the common practice on the street. You're saying it's not. It's one player, perhaps it's a wider practice. So a larger message. For
Actually, no, there's a paragraph on, today in my statement, there is a paragraph where I have talked about focus on governance, focus on compliance to regulatory requirements. And I have also ended that para by saying that key financial stability is a joint responsibility of all stakeholders, and stakeholders would include the regulator as well as the regulated entities. We supervise all entities, all major entities. Wherever we see problem, we first directly engage with the particular entity to see that corrective actions are taken. Where we see that the problems are huge or the problems are persistent, then only we act. Now let me say that I am not commenting on the cases where we have taken action. And this whole perception that against how many entities we have now supervisory restrictions imposed. We have about 90 odd banks. We have about more than 9,000 NBFCs. Our action is against 2 NBFCs and 1 payment bank. So, spate of regulatory or supervisory action, I think would not be correct way of describing the situation. I think it has to be seen in the total context.
धन्यवाद महोदय। अब मैं अनुराग शाह, ईटी स्वदेश से।
नमस्ते सर। सर मेरा सवाल जो है पिछली पॉलिसी वाला ही है। पिछली बार 2 सवाल पूछ लिए थे तो समय की कमी की वजह से आपने एक का ही जवाब दिया था। सर जिस तरह से जो
क्या कहा? दोबारा बताएंगे, मैं मिस कर गया।
नहीं सर, मैंने सर जो सभी सवाल पूछने जा रहा हूँ पिछली पॉलिसी में भी पूछा था, लेकिन 2 सवाल पूछ लिए थे और समय की कमी थी तो आपने एक का ही जवाब दिया था। तो वही सवाल वापस दोहरा रहा हूँ सर। पर्सनल लोन से जुड़ी हुई जो चिंता आरबीआई की थी, जिसमें रिस्क वेटेज भी बढ़ाया गया था, और उसके अलावा भी जो जिस तरह से लोन बांटे जाते हैं, हम में से सब इस बात से पीड़ित है कि हर दिन 3-4 कॉल आते हैं पर्सनल लोन के लिए, और बाकी लोन का भी आप देखो, अब तो खुल्लम खुल्ला बैंकें कह रही कि आप होम लोन का जो टॉप अप है वो ले लीजिए और उसके बाद उस पैसे का आप वेकेशन पे चले जाइए। ये ओपनली हो रहा है। तो जो एंड यूज नहीं हो रहा है, तो उसको लेकर कहीं ना कहीं रिजर्व बैंक चिंतित है। किस तरह का आपका मानना है?
आई थिंक डीजी स्वामीनाथन, मैं आपसे अनुरोध करूंगा कि आप इसका रिप्लाई दे दें। हिंदी में अगर दे सकते हैं तो दे दो, इंग्लिश में भी बोल दीजिए। ठीक है।
Misunderstood. So I think I would prefer to see. Absolutely, credit growth is one part, and we keep watch on the segmental growth as well. And wherever the segments have shown an outlier growth, that we initiate certain measures to ensure that they are contained. But your question regarding the end use of funds is something which is part of our regulatory framework, that every regulated entity is expected to monitor the end use of funds and then finance only such of those activities for which the purpose is stated explicitly and it's not used for speculative purposes, etc. So this is something which we will examine as part of our supervisory steps, and in case we observe any egregious or outlier behavior, and we will take up action in proportion to the violation that we observe. That's what I would like to say at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With your permission, last two questions, sir.
Okay.
Hamsini Karthik from the Hindu Business Line.
Hi. Thank you, sir. My question is with regards to transmission of rates. And as much as this is at prerogative of banks, what is possibly also happening is that fresh lending is happening at rates lower than what prevailed last year. And a lot of borrowers on the retail side are making use of it very judiciously. On the MCLR side, which is also the prevailing rate for most of the corporates, continues to be the prevailing rates for most of the non-retail loans, banks are not nudging much. It's not changed in the last 1 year significantly. But on the other hand, the Reserve Bank of India is particular that there is a reasonable amount of transmission that continues to happen before which any action can take place. Aren't we getting to a zone of standstill as far as rate transmission is concerned?
I think, Michael, you can take that.
So please look at the monetary policy report where the data are provided. If you look at the transmission over a period of time, not in a single point in time, let's say April to February, there is still transmission going on. In fact, in January, there were 13 basis points of increase in fresh loans. So we are still seeing a little bit of transmission going through, and we feel that as the mobilizing of deposits takes place at higher and higher rates, there will be a further transmission to lending rates. So we are still seeing transmission.
Just a clarification, should we expect that deposits, there is still runway for banks to increase deposits? Because banks come back to us saying that they've peaked on deposit rates. What do you see? How do you see the picture there?
No, we see a structural deficit between credit and deposits, and that is why we are seeing a flurry of efforts to raise bulk deposits. So there is still a need for deposits, and these deposits come at a higher rate than the retail deposits. So they will one day they will try to protect their NIMs, and therefore they will pass a little bit more.
Thank you.
I think Deputy Governor Swaminathan may like to add something.
Yes, just to supplement on that, ultimately these kind of actions also have to be seen in terms of the proportion and the mix of the loans that we have. As you mentioned, about even today, 50 to 53% of the loans only are linked to the external benchmark, where the transmission can be near real time. The remaining 47%, which is linked to various benchmarks, will happen over a period of time. The second aspect is also that there is a competition for good quality business. So obviously the banks will take a business call in terms of what sort of spread they would like to maintain. And if there is some sacrifice in spread happens, it may impact the effective interest rate. But as DG Patra explained, that it is very clear that the transmission is playing out and we'll have to see it over a period of time. And we would like this to continue in that manner. And as regards the deposits, we do see that banks are quite active in terms of their purpose in terms of mobilizing deposits, because there is 3.5% gap that is visible for more than a year's time now. And also we are seeing that the customers are also becoming price sensitive. There's a significant movement towards the term deposits. The proportion of CASA is declining as a part of the total deposits. So we would we will continue to watch the data in terms of its transmission, but moreover, it will also be a business call in terms of what sort of market share and share in the incremental deposit or the loan market the entities would like to maintain. So it will be a combination of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last question to Mr. Hitesh Vyas from the Indian Express.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, what is the crude price assumption you have taken in your projection?
I think it's given in the MPR. Can mention.
Okay.
How much we have said? 85. We have taken $85 per barrel.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to the close of the first press conference of year 2024-25. Thank you all for being here and making an interactive session. I thank the top management of Reserve Bank for patiently answering all the questions. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you और आप सबको नए आर्थिक वर्ष के लिए बहुत-बहुत शुभकामनाएं. Thank you.